What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. In today's video, we're talking about the Tennessee Titans and their season preview for the 2021 NFL season, including record predictions. All that and much more coming your way right now! Hey Trash Talkers, it's Mike here. Over 93% of you who view our show each and every day are not subscribed to the channel. If you could hit that red subscribe button, it would help us out tremendously, and it is completely free for you guys. If you want to stay up to date with our daily content, then click that bell icon and you will be notified every time we go live. Nick and I both really appreciate you subscribing to the channel, and we can't wait to keep making more daily content for you. All right, Nick, as we continue this series, we're starting off with the AFC South, and we're going to be talking about the Tennessee Titans today. So with the Tennessee Titans, they made some pretty notable additions this offseason, to say the least. But let's go through them. So starting off with the biggest and most recent, obviously, wide receiver Julio Jones, outside linebacker Bud Dupree, cornerback Janoris Jenkins, defensive tackle Denico Autry, and cornerback Caleb Farley coming in the first round of the NFL draft. Nick, out of these additions, which do you see being the best for the Titans moving forward?
It's without a doubt going to be Julio Jones. What Julio Jones offers is more than Corey Davis could ever offer the Tennessee Titans. The addition of Julio Jones is going to add such a valuable threat to this offense, and it's not just A.J. Brown anymore as the wide receiver. You can't just double, triple team him anymore. Now you got to worry about Julio Jones, and that opens up Derrick Henry even more. This is one of the most high-powered offenses all around. You don't know where to put your men, where to scheme them up, and this offensive line is still one of the best in the league. I think that this is going to be a very good season for the Tennessee Titans. I think that they are riding high, and this defense has just got to follow suit. If Mike Vrabel can get this defense under control, this is going to be one of the scariest teams in the AFC.
Yeah, I absolutely love the addition of Julio Jones, and obviously for my own purposes, I wish he was on the New England Patriots, but can't have everything that you want. So, with that being said, I actually believe that Bud Dupree is going to give them a little more life than we expect, because Bud Dupree is the outside linebacker that Mike Vrabel needed, right? He had Jadeveon Clowney, he had Vic Beasley. These guys just did not work. They did not work as defensive ends. For whatever reason, they just didn't work in his system. Mike Vrabel being one of the best outside linebackers that the NFL has ever had, Mike Vrabel will be able to get the most out of Bud Dupree. And what we saw him do in Pittsburgh, opposite TJ Watt, what he can do on the defensive side of the ball, this guy is no joke. He is going to be a sack machine for this team, and he's going to be a pillar in which Mike Vrabel rebuilds this defense. He's already started with Caleb Farley in the draft. He got Denico Autry from the division rival Indianapolis Colts. Bud Dupree is the pillar in which he is building the defense around, and I'm all in for that. But with these additions do come some losses, so we got to talk about those. Starting off with the biggest, tight end Jonnu Smith, wide receiver Corey Davis, cornerback Adoree Jackson, defensive end Jadeveon Clowney, wide receiver Adam Humphries, defensive tackle DaQuan Jones, and cornerback Malcolm Butler. Nick, of these, which do you think is the biggest loss for the Tennessee Titans?
Well, I talked about how high-powered this offense is, but it does come at the loss of Jonnu Smith, which is a massive loss because you're downgrading from Jonnu Smith to Anthony Firkser, who is mainly an inline blocker. He's not a great catcher. He doesn't have top end speed. He doesn't do anything great. He's just average at best. And to me, this is a step down. This allows the safeties to not only play the tight end, but they can also help out as linebackers and roam around the middle of the field, making it extra hard for these wide receivers to cross the field. To me, this is going to be a big loss that Ryan Tannehill is going to have to learn to live without. I think this is going to fall mostly onto Derrick Henry, who's going to have to be a bigger part of this receiving game because Anthony Firkser is just not going to be the guy to replace Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, I think the biggest losses actually come on the back end of the defense. We're talking about Adoree Jackson, arguably one of the best slot corners that this game currently has. And then Malcolm Butler, which, listen, we all know what he's synonymous with, clutch performance. And I believe that Malcolm Butler and his loss is going to be just absolutely enormous for this team. Yeah, they have Christian Fulton. Yeah, they signed Janoris Jenkins and drafted Caleb Farley. But when you get rid of Adoree Jackson and Malcolm Butler, you are resetting the defensive backfield. And they have some great safeties. Don't get me wrong. Kevin Byard, incredible safety. The cornerbacks are unproven. Janoris Jenkins needs to be a number two. He is not a number one, especially at this point in his career. Caleb Farley coming off of a back injury, which we're being told is not that serious and shouldn't have affected him in the draft, but it did. I believe that, that's something to watch out for because he has a rich injury history coming into the NFL. On top of that, Christian Fulton has just not shown that he's a number one corner. So you're really left scrambling trying to figure out who's going to be the number one corner, who's taking away that number one option for each and every team. Mike Vrabel coming from the Bill Belichick school of coaching, understanding that he needs to take away the best opportunity for scoring that the other team has, and that really has to come down to, do you have the personnel to do it? I don't know if Christian Fulton, Janoris Jenkins, and Caleb Farley are really that grouping. All right, those are the additions and the losses. Let's take a look at their schedule and get on with their record predictions. All right, taking a look at the schedule, let's start off with week one, where the Arizona Cardinals come to town. And this is a matchup that we were looking forward to. DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Kyler Murray, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, James Conner. This is going to be an absolute matchup for the ages. These offenses are going to go at it. I just believe that the Cardinals defense is going to be able to handle the Titans offense a little better than the Titans defense will be able to handle the Cardinals offense. So at this point, I believe that the Cardinals get the road victory in week one.
In week two, the Tennessee Titans make their way to Seattle, facing off against Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf. This is going to be a very big matchup. And to me, it's going to be two superior offenses versus two lackluster defenses. And it's going to come down to who has the ball at the end of the game. And I believe it's going to be Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. I believe that the Seahawks are going to take this one. It's going to be very close, but I think that the Seahawks offense is just going to be a lot more cohesive at this point in the season.
Listen, starting off 0-2 is not a good sign for Mike Vrabel, and we're taking a look at the offseason additions of Julio Jones, Bud Dupree. It's time for everybody to step up, and we're going to see just that in week three. The Indianapolis Colts, the division rivals, come to town, and they're in Nashville, Tennessee, where they take on the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are going to put on an absolute clinic in this game, scoring the ball at will. Derrick Henry is going to be running down the teeth of these defenses. I believe that the Tennessee Titans will come out on top week three very easily.
Moving into week four, the Tennessee Titans make their way to New York, to MetLife, facing off against the Jets. This should be a very good matchup for them, as the New York Jets have abysmal cornerbacks, abysmal safeties. This is going to be a very easy game for Ryan Tannehill to absolutely dot up these wide receivers. This is going to be a big passing attack. Derrick Henry should have a very solid game, even with the additions that the Jets made on this defensive line. He's still a powerhouse, and he's going to run through these guys. Tennessee Titans are going to have a breeze taking week four against the Jets.
Then in week five, the Titans go to Jacksonville, where they face off against the Jaguars, who are division rivals of theirs. And the Jaguars are in full rebuild mode. They got their quarterback of the future. Trevor Lawrence is getting his first look at the Tennessee Titans and a Mike Vrabel defense. If Mike Vrabel got anything from Bill Belichick, it's how to confuse a rookie quarterback. I believe that he's going to move his linebackers around. He's going to move his defense around, mass coverages, and really get into the head of Trevor Lawrence. Look for the Titans to come out on top in week five.
Moving into week six, the Buffalo Bills head to Tennessee, facing off And this is going to be a very big matchup for the Tennessee Titans. And the Buffalo Bills defense got a lot stronger up front with the addition of Greg Rousseau in the draft. He's a major defensive tackle who can play defensive end. He's going to be very hard for this Titans offensive line to stop. I think the Buffalo Bills have the defense to handle Derrick Henry. It's going to be a tough matchup, though, for these corners. Tre'Davious White is great, but when you drop down to Levi Wallace and company, it's a steep drop-off. I think the Tennessee Titans passing attack is going to be very good, but when you look at this Buffalo Bills offense, it's going to be way too much for the Tennessee Titans secondary to handle. The pass rush Bud Dupree has, it's not going to be enough to get past this Bills offensive line. The Buffalo Bills offense is really going to take command of this game and be the X factor that gets the Buffalo Bills the win in Week 6.
That's going to be an incredible Monday night matchup, by the way. But then we move on to Week 7, where the Kansas City Chiefs are coming to town. And the Kansas City Chiefs are in one of those stages where we know how good they are, but they don't know how good this Tennessee Titans team is. And when you have a coach like Mike Vrabel, he's not scared of anything. I believe he's going to pack a punch. He's going to come after Patrick Mahomes and do it in style. I believe that he is going to do everything in his power to take away Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, make him beat you with Mecole Hardman and company. And I believe that the Tennessee Titans get a massive win over the Kansas City Chiefs.
Moving into Week 8, the Tennessee Titans now make their way to Indianapolis, where they face off against the Colts for the second time in the first 8 weeks of the season. Unbelievable how quick these games have come together. But this time the Colts are looking for revenge as they lost on the road, and they're in their home stadium. Carson Wentz has learned how to play against this Tennessee Titans defense, and I think he's ready to put up some points, get a big W over the Tennessee Titans, and I think it's going to happen. I don't think Derrick Henry is going to have success against this defensive line 2 times in a row. The Colts offense is really going to show up, and they're going to get a big win and split the series this season.
All right, sitting at 4-4. This is not what the Tennessee Titans had in mind when they started their season, but this is where they are. And mind you, when you take a look at this schedule, if you take a look at both columns, just look and understand that this is the hardest part of their schedule. Pre-bye week is absolutely abysmal for this team. They have to go fight tooth and nail against some of the toughest teams, not only in the AFC, but throughout the entire NFL. In fact, they're playing the NFC West, which is arguably the best division in football. And now they face the Los Angeles Rams, who have Super Bowl aspirations of their own, apparently, and they're doing everything in their power. Jalen Ramsey against Julio Jones, incredible matchup that we get to see. We're going to see the new Matthew Stafford-led offense against the new Julio Jones-led offense of the Tennessee Titans. I just believe that the Rams defense is a little too much for this offense, and I believe that the Rams will come out on top in Week 9.
Moving into Week 10, the New Orleans Saints make their way to Tennessee. This isn't the same Saints team that we've seen in the past. The defense looks absolutely abysmal compared to what they have in the past. And the Saints offense, you still got Michael Thomas, you still got Alvin Kamara, that's great. But when you look at who's throwing the ball, Jameis Winston, that's not the guy that you really trust. The Tennessee Titans secondary is actually going to have a decent game here, as Caleb Farley should show up, should have a nice game against Michael Thomas, and I think that the secondary is really going to have a nice time picking apart Jameis Winston with all the 50-50 balls he loves to throw. The Tennessee Titans defensive line is going to have a good game against Alvin Kamara. He's going to be a big passing attack weapon, but that's why you got guys like Bud Dupree and Rashad Evans. I think these guys are really going to show up. The Saints defense is absolutely no match for the Tennessee Titans weapons. Julio Jones and A.J. Brown really going to make their mark. Derrick Henry is going to run all over this lackluster defensive line for the New Orleans Saints.
All right, and then in Week 12, the Houston Texans come to town, and the Houston Texans will not be led by Deshaun Watson this year as he continues his legal battle and his legal troubles. We believe that Deshaun Watson will be on the commissioner's exempt list at minimum, so we do not believe that he'll be playing. However, the Tennessee Titans still have to face the Texans, and without Deshaun Watson, this Texans team is lackluster at best. I believe that the Titans have the requisite pieces to absolutely dominate in this game. Look for the Titans to get a big divisional win in Week 11 and get themselves above 500.
Moving into Week 12, the Tennessee Titans make their way to Gillette Stadium, one of the hardest places to play in the NFL. And when you look at how the Tennessee Titans have played against the Patriots in the past, they've had quite the success. Me and Mike know firsthand, as we were there, as the Titans absolutely destroyed our hopes and dreams in Tom Brady's final game. That was a bad loss, and I think the Tennessee Titans know exactly how to play against the Patriots. Mike Vrabel knows how to scheme up against Bill Belichick. This is going to be a very good game for the Tennessee Titans. The Patriots secondary is great, but I think that Julio Jones and A.J. Brown are going to be a little too much. Derrick Henry is going to have a nice time running against this Patriots defensive line, even as strong as they've gotten. It's going to be a big win for the Titans in Week 12.
Then in week 13, the Tennessee Titans have their bye week, and in week 14, they come out of the bye facing off against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars, who again they are in a rebuild mode. They still got Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne. They have some great pieces, but are they ready for the Tennessee Titans? The answer is simply no. Tennessee Titans are too strong on both sides of the ball to really compete here, and I believe that the Titans will get an easy victory in week 14.
Coming off of 4 straight wins, the Tennessee Titans now make their way to Pittsburgh in Week 15. This is going to be the biggest test for the secondary, as the Steelers have a ton of wide receivers. We know that Juju Smith-Schuster has rejoined his teammates, and this is going to be a very tough matchup. It's going to be 2 high-powered offenses going up against each other, and this is Bud Dupree facing off against his old team. It's going to be interesting to see who's better, Bud Dupree or TJ Watt. I think we all know the answer to that, and I think we're going to see that in this matchup. TJ Watt is going to get the better of the Titans' offensive line. He's going to get to Ryan Tannehill more frequently. He's going to put a lot more pressure on this offense, and to me, the Steelers are going to upset the Titans in Week 15.
Then in week 16, the Tennessee Titans have a Thursday night football game against the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, who we expect to have had a quarterback change by this point, switching from Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance, is going to be one for the ages. However, this is a Thursday night game. San Francisco traveling to Nashville on the short week. The whole West Coast to East Coast thing never works out in anybody's favor. I believe that the 49ers are going to be very sluggish in this game. Look for the Titans to dominate on a San Francisco 49ers team that's going to be ill-prepared for this matchup.
Moving into Week 17, the Dolphins make their way to Tennessee. This is going to be the final home game for the Tennessee Titans this season, and they want to go out with a bang. This is a very strong offensive attack, very strong defensive attack from the Dolphins. To me, this is going to be very similar to their Seattle game in Week 2. It's going to come down to who has the ball at the end. And to me, it's going to be the Tennessee Titans. I think that Derrick Henry is really going to help them get a lot of chunk yards against this Dolphins defensive line who have gotten weaker this season. I think that he's going to have one of his 200-yard games against the Miami Dolphins. He's going to be the X factor, getting them a big home victory in Week 17.
All right, sitting at 10-6, the Tennessee Titans are fighting for their playoff spot, possibly fighting for the division at this point. We're taking a look at these other teams. I just don't think that they have what it takes, but the Tennessee Titans are not willing to risk it for the biscuit. So they are going to keep their starters in. They're going to absolutely flourish against the Houston Texans in Houston against a Tyrod Taylor-led Texans team. Who knows who will be the quarterback? It's not going to be Deshaun Watson, and I believe the Tennessee Titans come out on top with a very, very easy victory.
Well, with a record of 11-6, it's a very solid record, and it's a huge step up for the Tennessee Titans. I think what's going to hold them back from getting a couple more wins is going to not only be the secondary, but also be the pass rush. Bud Dupree was a great starting place, and I think that he's going to go a long way, but I think they need to capitalize on him and get another big weapon on the other side. Harold Landry is okay. He has never really fulfilled what he was supposed to be. He was a heavy pass rusher in college, and he's never lived up to the hype that he should have. I think that this is going to be a very strong season for the Tennessee Titans to really build off of, but they're not done here. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to definitely compete in the conference, but I don't think they're going to get too far. I think they're going to still be looking towards the future seasons as they try to rebuild in those off seasons and get stronger. This team is on the verge of being a Super Bowl contender. I think they'll be there in a couple of years.
I think this team is going to be held back by one of two things: the defensive secondary or Ryan Tannehill. I can't decide which one, but I believe it's going to be one of these two things. We have seen Ryan Tannehill progress and progress and progress ever since leaving the grips of Adam Gase down in Miami. I believe that with so much progression, you have to regress a little bit at some point. And it's not anything toward him. There's no ill will toward him at all. I hope that he does keep progressing. I just understand the idea of regression to the mean, and I believe that at this point, Ryan Tannehill is going to be not as dominant as he was either last year or the year before, even with the addition of Julio Jones. I believe that he's still getting used to Julio Jones. He's going to try to force more balls into Julio Jones. I think that's going to cause a lot of issues as far as, throwing into tighter windows, maybe trying to extend plays when they shouldn't have been, so on and so forth. I believe that the identity of this team, one of the big losses we never covered was the loss of offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith had a really good idea on what this team should be doing, and he got Derrick Henry an incredible season last year. Uh, does Derrick Henry have the same thing? Does Ryan Tannehill continue to progress under a new offensive coordinator, a new system that they have to learn? So there's a lot of questions here. And then we've gone over the defensive secondary and my questions about them. I believe that at this point they may win the division or they may get in as a wild card spot. Either way, the Tennessee Titans are vastly improved. Can the players continue to improve themselves? So that's my big takeaway here. That's my big question. But either way, sitting at 11-6, incredible job for the Titans, and we'll see what the rest of the season has for each of their teams in the division, because we got more to this series as we continue. So that'll be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.